What's up guys, Chris from the Review Cave here, and today we are back with another chapter review for the 7 Deadly Sins sequel manga, The 4 Nights of the Apocalypse. Real quick thing, this will obviously contain spoilers for the recent chapter of The 4 Nights of Apocalypse, since obviously it just started, and I've already done 3 videos talking about the recent 3 chapters. And hopefully from this point onward, I can actually get this video out for each chapter the week of the chapter's actual release. So, without further ado, let's get started with the video. So, in the last chapter, with the aftermath of Percival taking out that giant wolf monster, he ended up encountering the magic knight known as Pelgart, who was actually searching for Percival himself. The fight begins, and Percival actually ends up unlocking his own magic at the very end, despite him thinking he does not have any. And that's honestly where this new chapter begins. Chapter 4 is titled Unknown Magic. So, let's begin. So, the chapter starts off with Percival wondering what the heck happened, how he was able to push the magic knight back. And Pelgart is like, I don't have any magic. Those were his exact words. Pelgart then goes on to say, if so, please explain to me what's overflowing from your body. And Percival, after looking at his hands, actually starts freaking out, wondering what the heck is going on. It feels gross to him, and he's trying to get whatever's covering his hands off of his body. And honestly, Percival keeps running around trying to get it off. And then when he gets close to Pelgart, he says, to get it off. Pelgart's trying to tell him that it's his magic, and by accident, he launches some sort of energy-based attack and knocks Pelgart back again. And that's actually hilarious, because now Donnie is telling him that what Percival is using is his own magic. And Pelgart, standing up, says that the magic that he's using basically is empowering his fists with magical power, and it might be an incantation type of magic. So this is actually something that I didn't really pay too much attention to back in 7 Deadly Sins due to, well, the pure awesomeness, but it's the different types of magic, and this chapter goes on to tell us what Percival's magic type actually is. So, honestly, Percival, now that he unlocked his powers, being the naive kid he is, asks the magic knight, can I use my magic to fight you? And he says yes. And now Percival is incredibly confident that he'll win now that he has his magic power. And Pelgart, getting ready, he launches his own magical attack, which is a giant fireball that comes around and hits Percival. And this is his magical power is called Blaze. And Donnie mentions that this type of fire magic is leagues above the leader's fire magic. And Pelgart controls the fireball, and Percival continues to attempt to dodge over and over, and this looks amazing, seeing Percival twisting and weaving through every single attack to try and dodge it. As Pelgart says, how do you hope to win if you're too busy dodging? Percival says he's right, and as he says that, Pelgart, asking what he'll do, launches the fireball straight at him as Percival grasps his hands together, lifts him up, and then knocks the fireball into the ground, seemingly dispersing it. But, right out the gate, the fireball ends up hitting him from underneath him as it dispersed and continued to converge onto him, hitting him with a massive fireball. But, what is interesting is that the flames that are hitting Percival aren't going out. Pelgart then begins to say that his magic, his blaze, the fireball that he used, doesn't go out until he himself disperses it or until his target is reduced to nothing. He's trying to get Percival to surrender. Meanwhile, he's trying to convince Percival to surrender. And same with his friends. They're trying to tell him to just surrender because it's not worth him dying over right now. Percival says he can't stand losing. We see in these panels that he is most likely subconsciously morphing the magic that he has on his fists around his body, creating a type of barrier with his own magical power. And Pelgart is honestly pretty impressed and confused by this because he just awakened his magical power and he's already pretty adept of using it. So he is wondering what's going on. But he then says that it's too late for this to do any real difference because Percival is already incredibly injured from what's going on. He tries to get Percival to surrender, but we then see on this exact same page that some little blob thing that at first I'm mistaken to be Percival managing to grab onto his arm somehow, grabs on and says win. And then we see a bunch of mini magic type golems that Percival seems to be subconsciously creating is starting to surround and grab onto Pelgart. He then goes on to say that what he's doing, he's basically changing his magic up to the point where he can basically subconsciously create magical golems and have them go towards a certain goal, which is, well, confining and trying to take down Pelgard. Which he then confusingly said, being obviously confused as we are too, is that this type of magic is seemingly degeneration magic, since it basically breaks up his own magical power like this. So the mini magic golems are clinging onto his arms, and it's almost as if they know that by sealing his arms, it will lift the spell. So that is actually pretty interesting. And the fire surrounding Percival actually disperses. And then we see that his wounds are actually healing. Donnie is surprised as well, but so is Pelgard. He's like, this is honestly impossible. He's wondering what his magic type is. He goes on, like, destruction type, incantation type, degeneration, healing. And it's not one of those types. And he's like, perhaps this is the magic type that is 1 out of 10,000 people. The hero type. So a brand new magical type that we had no idea of. And honestly, he then begins to wonder, is Percival, with this type of magic, could he actually be one of the future 4 Knights of the Apocalypse? He was like, they will become aware of each other sooner or later, and he's much too valuable to die. Now, before I go on to continue, let me just state this one thing. Ironside went to Percival and Bulgus back in the first chapter to try and erase who could potentially be one of the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse. Even though he did kind of let Percival live, from what we can tell, it is highly possible that Ironside wanted to kill the 4 Knights of Apocalypse before they became a threat. But from what it looks like, Pelgard might know who the other 4 Knights of Apocalypse could be, and that he's too valuable to die, which means he might be someone who is looking for the 4 Knights of Apocalypse so that they can meet and possibly nurture them so they can become stronger, maybe even become heroes. Or maybe Pelgard really is a true blue villain and wants to try and make them into the actual villains of the story. But we don't get much time for his inner monologue, as Percival just strolls up and lands one clean punch right onto Pelgard as he falls back. As Percival says, let's continue the fight. Ending the chapter. With the next chapter name reveal being the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse. So, it is looking as though we could actually get the reveal of what the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse truly are, who actually made this prediction, and possibly guesses on who the other 3 members of the Knights of the Apocalypse are. I mean, we, the readers, obviously think that this is going to be the children of the 7 deadly sins. I mean, it's incredibly obvious. We wouldn't have had the last chapter of the 7 deadly sins focused primarily on Tristan, and us getting a one-shot based off of Bond's son, Lancelot, if they weren't going to be a major part of the story or the main characters. That, and we've seen, like, actual sketches from the 4 Knights of Apocalypse manga before this was even revealed, that these characters were going to play a major role. Now, honestly, I can't wait for the real explanation for what the 4 Knights of Apocalypse are, because from what we can tell, the next chapter is most likely going to be more of an info dump for us telling what exactly the 4 Knights of Apocalypse really are and who they could potentially be. And we might get some real information on Ironside and even Pelgard on what he is actually planning. Could he actually be a villain who wants to gather the 4 Knights of Apocalypse to destroy Arthur? Or could it be someone who knows the true meaning of the prophecy in the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse and wants to make them heroes for King Arthur? We're not entirely sure, because we do know that Ironside and his gang basically betrayed King Arthur in the past, and for all we know, Pelgard could just be secretly wanting to keep Camelot and King Arthur safe while on the guise of a traitor. That's something that I honestly hope that's something that happens. But regardless, we had a really great action-packed chapter, and we got the reveal of Percival's magic type, which is Hero, and it's seemingly like it is incredibly overpowered, considering that it can heal him. He can heal himself. He can disperse his magic across his body as a type of incantation to power up his fists, cover his body in mana to protect from like the elements or physical damage as like a barrier. He can disperse his magic as a type of destruction, or he could use it as a degeneration type to make like those little magical golems. And since all that is technically something called a hero type, could the rest of the 4 Knights of Apocalypse have this type of magical power? Maybe, maybe not. But while this is seemingly overpowered, we have to remember that Percival has been trained for 16 years without magic, so it's very possible that when this fight's over, he will be incredibly drained. Because despite this being overwhelmingly big cliche in any anime or manga, where the hero unlocks their incredible power when fighting some insanely strong opponent that's stronger than them, they almost instantly master it, or there's some kind of drawback to unlocking it right away, and once you finish using it, you're drained for the rest of the day. I have a feeling that Pelgart might actually be a good guy, under the guise of being a traitor, so no one suspects him. But that's all I really got to say for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really helps. And if you really do like this type of manga review, I will continue to do this weekly so I can keep covering this manga. Once we get enough chapters, I will try and do some theory videos on what could potentially happen in this manga. And don't forget to leave comments down below on what you think of Percival's new magic type, and who the rest of the Four Knights of Apocalypse could actually be, if not the Children of the Sins. As well as what you think of the possibility of Pelgart actually being a good guy, instead of an actual bad guy like Ironside seemingly is. But with all that said and done, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at the official Review Cave for updates on future videos. And with all that said and done, I hope you guys have an awesome